Okay, the main assembly is pretty much complete other than some things here and there. The next step is the trailer. So we're gonna go ahead and put this together. I'm gonna open this up, show you what's inside, kind of what it looks like when it's shipped up, and then we're gonna get to the assembly part. Stay tuned. The box is opened, just a few straps and some stretchy tubes, shrinky stuff, and boom, here we are. That is a whole trailer up in there. Sure is. For a big Lego kit. Let's see, these guys are 155 R12s, little 12. Wow, look at those little fellers. Okay, so next we're gonna pull all this stuff out, look at the instructions, and start the assembly. This should be a good time. All right, so we have a few boxes, some nuts and bolts, a couple larger brackets. Here's all the bits and pieces to put it together. Looks like it's got some fenders, wheels. Those are just little fellers. And of course the stabilizers there, levelers. So now that we have everything laid out, doesn't look too intimidating, we're gonna get out the instructions and get it going. So she's finally together. This was very interesting to put this trailer on. Interesting saga, but I'll get into all those details afterward. Now what I did is I put this on a couple sawhorses. Make sure they're strong, because this is probably close to 1,000 pounds without the saw head. That's me guessing, but it's pretty darn heavy. But it made the most sense. So as you assembled all those trailer pieces that you saw, which the instructions are actually pretty good to go through it. That's why I didn't do a step-by-step, because they're pretty good. But anyway, you get them on a sawhorse and then you start to measure all the bits and pieces. Now what I did is I started from the back right here, and I just used like a drywall square. I wanted to make sure all the stuff was really square. So this is basically what I did, is I started off with this and I kept checking it as I went. Now once the back was squared up, what I would do is these right here will move. This will slide in and out of it a little bit because you have these bolts that hold it in. So what I did is I would slide this all the way in or push this all the way back, the same over here. And then once it was squared up, I would go ahead and I tightened all these, you know, on these sides. Then what I did is I would go ahead and measure, well, this right here for the brackets too. I pushed this all the way back, tightened it, and the same for this side. Then these have to be 24.5 inches on center right here between the two. So I just measured right from this edge all the way down to here, and I think it was 33 3/4. I'm starting to forget some of the measurements, but anyway, I just made sure it was squared from here to there and the same over there. That way I can get these two the same. And then when we started tightening these down, I just started with a few and I worked my way that way. And then this side I bolted down first, and every time I put these down, I would just grab a regular square. So this regular square here, I would just stick it on and make sure it was squared up for every single one that I did. So that was pretty handy. One measurement that I was unable to get was the measurement between this and this. Now what they suggested you do is keep everything loose, all these guys loose, and then put the saw head on and adjust from there. That was kind of difficult because I had to tighten all these bolts down for the trailer to mount to the chassis. So I'm going to give you the measurement that I have on this OS31. So it should be a decent guide. About 30 3/4. I tightened this one side here on the left, pretty much all the way down, making sure these the cross bunks were squared up, and then I just went all the way around to the other side. And as I went, again, I started to tighten these down in there as I went up. Now there's one thing they give you with the suspension that is a little off. I was unable to get it done to my satisfaction, so I'm gonna have to go back through. But you'll see there's a space right there because they give you these right here to allow the suspension to work, but this should have been skinnier to accept them. So what I'm gonna end up doing is putting some spacers right in this area right here. I haven't quite done it yet. And then everything else I tightened down. Again, these, from this bolt at the top to this one, they suggest 24.5 inches. Another thing to mention is as you're assembling this, there's a cross member up here for the hitch mount. There's a skinnier one. You have to use this longer one for the OS31 and OS27. And the other lower models use a skinnier one. So there is a spare part. Don't freak out if you have this. So let's talk about some pros. I was surprised at how well that it went together, and it feels pretty sturdy. If it wasn't for the fact that it mounted to this right here, it would be a little chintzy, because I mean you're tightening these and that kind of holds it together. But then these bolts, they're pretty burly, and there's spacers under there. That makes it pretty nice. I will note too that a couple of the spacers, I believe it's this one, I'm right about in the middle, and those over there as well. Those spacers are a little bit longer because if you look at the difference right here, you can see that this will drop off. So the spacers in this have to be longer than the spacers here. There's only 4 where you have to use the longer ones. And again, those are right here, here, and those two. Every other one has the shorter spacer, so that's why there's different spacers. All outlined in the instructions. This is where the saw head will be. I added this grippy tape on top just to protect it if I needed to get up on it for whatever reason. It's a good step stool. That's why I did that. The way this mounts in here, this basically slides in. This is the tongue, and then they have this pin, and that holds it in. And it does move a little bit. Do I like it? Not so much, but when I'm gonna have this saw on site, where I may not be there all the time, it's gonna be nice for theft. You know, I could take this out, and I could even take the wheels off if I wanted to make sure no one would take it. So that's kind of nice, but I'm thinking about putting a bolt through that just because it seems a little chintzy. But overall, I mean, these here, they hold it up pretty well. They go quite high. It's in a shop, of course, not out in the dirt yet. I'll be putting some wood underneath of it. So, but yeah, overall, it wasn't too bad of an install. It probably took about 3 hours with a buddy helping out, which did speed things up. Now, as far as putting this saw head on, that was, this thing's heavy. It was pretty hairy. I had to improvise a bit. The only chain I have was a little too long for my chain fall, so I had to put some bolts in there, which they worked well. And then, you know, just used the chain fall, lifted it up, swung it around, backed the trailer under it basically, and set it on there, and she was good to go. I did strap it, as you can see here, so it stopped moving. I haven't put in the stoppers yet underneath, but it's decent. Now, another thing to mention too are the fenders. They do give you fenders, the one I purchased, and basically they just have these snap rings that hold them on. So they'll go ahead and mount in this hole and then that hole, and then you put the clip in. Are they gonna bounce around going down the road? Yep. Am I gonna do something to reduce that? Yep. But it's nice because you can take them off, because when you're, you know, loading logs, you're probably gonna wreck your fenders. So I see why they wanted them to be taken off, but I'm gonna put something in there to make it a little bit better. I'm not super happy with that. So our next steps here for me, there's a lot of little stuff I have to finish up. I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I finally have the battery that was on back order that showed up, and some of my stainless steel bunk covers. I have more than you normally would have because I have an extension. So the 7-foot extension, I am not gonna put it on this trailer going down the road. I'm just gonna end up, when I get it on site where I'm cutting, if I need it, I'm just gonna take these bolts out and add the extension after the fact. Because if you take a look at this thing, it's pretty long. And I think if you were to add 7 foot hanging off the back of this, that it's not something I'd wanna go down the road. because I'm going to need to drive quite a ways with this thing. So anyhow, stay tuned. I'm going to go ahead and finish up the last bits and pieces. Oh, one thing to mention, the instructions. So when I received the trailer, there were no instructions. None. And I was thinking to myself, oh no. So let's say that you ordered your mill, and then after the fact, like me, you said, hey, I want to get the trailer with it. All the instructions for the trailer are in the install book for the saw itself. It's just toward the back. So just, if you don't get anything with it, don't freak out. It's actually all in your main book. So to wrap this video up, I wanted to kind of go over a little bit of my first maiden voyage. I did pull this up, and I sent it over to a local weigh station. So I live kind of in a rural area, and there are elevators where they have scales and so on, and it's about $5. They weigh your trailer. If you want to get it plated, that's what you have to do here in Michigan. When you go over to these, a lot of the places say you can use a slow moving vehicle sign. I just bolted it right down there in the bunk. Had a little bracket on the back. So that way it's legal going over there and there's no issues. The next thing I wanted to talk about is how am I going to hook up the wiring and so on. I do want a quick release for the lights in the back for each of those two in the rear. And I also want one up here toward the tongue. So what I plan to do is when I get it on site, I'm going to remove this tongue, and I'm probably going to remove the wheels and so on and just put it stationary and take those just to make it harder to take it if they were to even find it. But nonetheless, I'm going to use some of these automotive style connectors. They're only a 3-wire, so I might have to use all these up to get it done. So that's basically what I'll do. So I'll give it a little bit of slack through here, so when I take this out, the wire will be in there, and then I'll be able to go ahead and just disconnect it, leave the wires inside, and I'll do the same in the back over here when I want to take these lights out, because I do have an extension that I'm going to be putting on it. So, you know, these lights are probably going to have to come off. I don't want to tow it with the extension on it. I suppose I could just move this all back, make this the back, but I had to simplify it. I don't mind putting it up there. I'm not going to be moving it very often. So I pulled it. How did it go? Well, it went really well, actually. I tightened everything up really good. I aired the tires up to about 55 psi. They say a max of 65 on these guys, and they are because I need to get a spare also. They're a 5 lug. They're 155 R120 88 86Q. Well, you can see that right there. So I'll probably run up to one of the local farm stores and grab a spare, because if you have a spare, you won't get a flat usually. So I hope that rule applies. When I take this, I'm probably going to take off all of the levelers here. I took off the front two, and I put them back in at the weigh station because you have to disconnect it completely. I put them in, jacked it up, got it weighed and everything. It was about 1,480 pounds. This is the OS31 standard, the way it is with the larger 14-horse motor. I'm probably going to drain the water out. I did see it sloshing around in there, and it holds about 3 gallons. Water's about 8 pounds per gallon. You know, I'm probably going to strap it down. One of the guys in the Facebook group said to strap it. Hey, straps are cheap. This thing probably isn't, so I'll strap it down. These things didn't move too much, so I might still zip tie them just to hold them together. But I got up to 60 miles an hour, and it was stable. It was smooth. It pulled like a dream. You can see where I have the saw head. So everything went pretty well. I feel quite confident. I did lube this up. I would say check all your bolts, make sure everything's nice and tight. Now here's something I did do. Now this lock here, you can see it's off a little bit. This is loose on the back side, so that wasn't cool. I put this one in. I went and bought it. It's a 8.8 grade bolt, and I bought these little nylon spacers, and I just ground it on an angle. I held it up there, drew a line, and ground it on a sander just to get a better fit. This one held good because I put a nylock on the back side. These do not have nylocks on the back side, and when you put the sawmill together, you're gonna have parts left over. At least I did. I hope that's normal. So I'm gonna take like some of these, they're gonna look like this, the nylocks. I'm gonna take those and put them on the back side of this to help hold it. In addition to that, I strapped it here against this bunk, and I strapped it against the back bunk. The strap kind of flopped around a little bit. It didn't work as well as I wanted to. So I'm gonna do that a little bit better. And then just because I'm paranoid, I'm gonna strap it along here as well. You may think that, you're killing it, man. Well, I'm gonna be pulling this thing about 300 miles. So I'm a little leery. I wanna make sure it's good. I'm gonna be checking it often, every so often, pull over, make sure everything's good to go. I'll probably end up taking these off and throw them in the back. All the, you know, these I'm gonna double check. But anyway, I didn't find anything on YouTube about how to pull this thing, what it was like, how far could you go, how fast could you go. And hopefully this will help some guys out there that have this trailer package. So hope that was helpful. If it was, please, you know, click that like and subscribe button down there, and add any comments. If you have suggestions, stuff that you've experienced, you know, post it out there. Well, for me and the group, you know, for everybody that reads this, it's going to help somebody out. Lessons learned is always welcomed. So again, thanks for your time. Thanks for watching, and you guys have a great day. Happy milling.